Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a good start to your week so far. For those of you who don't know, I am Tom Hess, and today we're going to be talking about a very special set of topics. They're so special, I know very little about them, but I've brought in a very special guest who knows much more about these things than I do. And I wanted to bring him in to talk to you guys about some of the coolest finger picking guitar techniques. I don't do much finger picking at all. This is way out of my area of expertise. But we're going to talk about, what are some of the coolest finger picking techniques, what they are, what makes them sound so great, and how to use them. So, by the way, we will be taking questions live in the chat. So if you have questions, just go ahead and ask in the chat. We'll take as many as we can, and we'll answer them towards the end, time permitting. So our special guest today is one of the absolute best acoustic and finger guitar picking teaching experts in the world. And I'm talking about my friend, Simon Candy. Welcome, Simon.
Thank you, Tom Hess. How you doing?
Doing very good. Now, Simon here, for everyone watching, Simon is so dedicated. I'm in Illinois, and it's 1 p.m. Chicago time. Simon, tell everybody what time it is for you in Australia.
It's just gone 4 a.m. So rather early or late, whatever way you want to look at it.
That is dedication. You can be sure I will not be waking up at 4 a.m. or 3 a.m. to do a live stream or a live class or anything else. So I appreciate you being here for this, Simon. So today I want to talk about, or actually I want you to talk about, which are the coolest finger picking techniques in your opinion, what they are, what makes them sound so great, and how do you use them? So do you have, let's just start with one at a time. If you've got one that you think is really cool, can you talk about that? Maybe demonstrate.
Sure. Yep. I think we could start with harp harmonics. So let me perhaps just play some harp harmonics for those of you who might not know what they are. So basically, harp harmonics sound like this. Okay, so there's lots of ways that you can use harp harmonics. I was arpeggiating basically up chords then, the 2, 5, 1, 6 chord progression is what I was playing there. So harp harmonics, it's a very cool sound. I first came across this sound maybe about 20 odd years ago through looking at Chet Atkins' music, and then got into it a whole lot more when I discovered Lenny Breau. So harp harmonics, basically you're most likely familiar with natural harmonics on a guitar, electric or acoustic. We get these octave harmonics at the 12th fret, and we also have harmonics at the 7th fret and 5th and so forth. So we can sound these harmonics and get the same sort of sound, but we're very limited in this approach because it's only really the open string harmonics, and you're needing both hands to sound the harmonics. You need the finger to lightly touch across the string, and the other hand, the thumb or whatever, to sound the harmonic. So with harp harmonics, or the harmonic part of harp harmonics, to get the sound, you use your index finger. It's locked at the knuckle there, it's straight, and I'll sort of demonstrate on the open strings here at the 12th fret. The tip of the index finger, if I can kind of get it to, so you can see it here, is directly over the top of the fret, and it's not pushing down at all. It's touching the string, nothing more. It's not pushing at all. The string's not moving down towards the fret in any way whatsoever. I'm just touching the tip of the finger directly above the fret, and then the thumb of the same hand, my picking hand, is going to pluck the string from behind. Just trying to see if you can see the angle there. So my thumb is sitting on the string behind the index finger, and it plucks the string. So instead of needing two hands to get this harmonic, thumb and fretting hand, we can now get the same sound with one hand, okay, with our picking hand. And I could go up and play each of the harmonics at the 12th fret like that. So it's my index finger locked in place, my thumb behind on the same string, of course, because it's going to pluck that string and sound the harmonic. Now, the good thing about this is it frees up our fretting hand. So these are octave harmonics. So when you play the open string harmonic, you've got to be 12 frets above. In fact, any harmonic you're going to play of any note, you've got to be 12 frets above. That will give you the octave harmonic. So when I was playing a minor 7 chord here, it's at the 5th fret. So I need to add 12 to get the harmonic of those 5th fretted notes there. So 5 plus 12 is 17. So directly over the 17th fret, I can get those harmonics of the 5th fretted notes down here. I couldn't do that if I was playing, if I needed both hands, because I couldn't fret the chord and sound the harmonic at the same time. So you can imagine the possibilities that come from being able to play the harmonics of fretted notes, not just open strings. And that's the harmonic part of it. But what's added to get the harp sound is regular notes. So you can alternate essentially a harmonic with a regular note. And I'm sounding that regular note with the ring finger of the same hand, the picking hand. So while my thumb is over the top of the 17th fret here to sound the harmonic of the 5th fret, I do that, and then my ring finger plucks the 3rd string. So it's all 5th fretted notes here. Okay, so I'm plucking the 3rd string. And then I go to the next string, the 5th string, over the 17th fret too, because these are all 5th fretted notes. And then my ring finger plucks the 2nd string, and then I get my index finger, I get the fingers right here, over the 17th fret, and then I can pluck with my ring finger the top string. So, okay, we get that type of an effect. And we can come back down. So in a nutshell, that's the harp sound that you get using harp harmonics.
Simon, I just want to clarify. Thank you for that. I just want to clarify that only the string with the thumb is doing the harmonic with the index finger. The string that you are plucking with your ring finger is not a harmonic.
Correct. Yes. Yep, that is correct. So you get that alternating of harmonic and regular note. And you get, sometimes they call them cascading harmonics, they cascade up and down. Now, I was doing that across different chords. So I think I had a D9 chord here. So I was doing the same thing across a D9 chord. Okay, but with the D9 chord, I've got to follow the shape. So part of this technique, apart from sort of the obvious thing, I guess, which is the technique of, getting the index finger and the thumb to sound a harmonic and then alternating with the ring finger, it's also been able to visualize the chord shape you're holding down here in the fretting hand, an octave higher, 12 frets higher. So when I play this D9, I've got to outline that D9 shape. So when I get to the 4th string, I've got to go down a fret because this is in the 4th fret, this note here. Adding 12 puts you at the 16th fret. If I play at 17, I won't get it. Okay, it'll be a muted sound. So you've got to follow the shape of the chord as you play it. So what I tend to suggest, if you like this sound and you want to look at getting this into your playing, I would practice tracing or tracking chord shapes with just the harmonic. So if we were at the 5th fret, you could just practice playing each of the notes of the chord with the harmonic. So leave the ring finger out for the moment and just play the harmonic. And when you go to the D9 chord, again, tracing out the shape of the chord, moving down that fret there to accommodate the 4th fretted note in the chord. I went to a G major 7 of sorts here. So again, I'm following the shape of the chord. Now you can do this with any chord. So if you're not familiar with these particular chord shapes I'm playing, you could do it with anything. You could play a C chord, just an open chord, and you could do that, or you could play it on a G chord. The main thing is getting used to playing the harmonic and visualizing what you want to play an octave higher. That takes a little bit of practice too. You do get a lot better with it, but that takes a little bit of practice as well. That'll do your head in a little bit initially perhaps, but it's visualization. So, you know, we have to visualize many things on the guitar, and this is just another thing involved with in the context of harp harmonics. So the other sort of, you can do all sorts of things with harp harmonics. I'll play a little bit of a melody here for you. So this approach with harp harmonics, you could, it is more melodic rather than just playing up and down chords. So let me just play a little bit here for you so you can get an idea of, you know, some possibilities that the harmonics can bring into your playing when you can play them like this with a single hand. So something like this. Okay, so you can even play harmonics off of the fretboard as long as you're, I mean here, I could say I'm guessing, but I've done it enough to kind of be able to kind of see where they should be, but you don't have the frets as a guide there, but you can do them anyway. It's basically splitting the string halfway from where you are fretting the note to the bridge here. Okay, so that's sort of playing it in the context of melodies, which is very cool. Just there's so many things that you can do when you really explore harp harmonics. There's sounds you can get that you just can't really get, or they're very awkward to get when you're playing, all fretted notes. On the chords, you can do little embellishments and things like that. You can play scales. Okay, all sorts of things that you can do. Pretty much anything you can do with harp harmonics that you could do with fretted notes, but they do make things, they make things a lot easier and more possible than just playing fretted notes. So, for example, just to give you an idea, if I do this on the A minor chord, I'm covering a lot of range there without moving my fretting hand and just staying within a fret. If I was to play that with all fretted notes, it's not going to sound the same anyway, but it would be this. Okay, so I'm covering a lot of range on the fretboard here. You can get it all in the single fret. So this sort of gives you an idea of the possibilities you can get with harp harmonics, apart from just the different sound, also the different melodic possibilities that you can get. You can also play together. So you can play either two notes together, harmonic and the ring finger, or you can bring in the middle finger, and so you get in three notes, or even the pinky to get four notes. The harmonic and the three regular notes can take a little bit of practice getting a bit of an even volume there. But again, something like that, if I'm doing this, just up the chord. If I do that fretted, you know, it's pretty, I can do it, but you can see the trouble I've got to go to, whereas it's exactly the same thing, but with the harmonic. Okay, so it gives you all sorts of possibilities, apart from a very cool sound. So harp harmonics, a really cool technique.
Totally cool. Love the sound. It's just awesome. It sounds cool, looks cool. It's just great. All right. So I know you've got other techniques that you'd like to talk about fingerstyle beyond harp harmonics. And I do see we've got some questions, and we'll try and get to as many of those as we can at the end. But let's move along. Got another technique you want to share with us, Simon?
Sure. Okay, let's have a look. So I like to use open strings. I mean, we have open strings in open chords, and melodies and things that you might learn when you first start learning guitar, and that is cool. But again, there's so much more you can do with open strings. So let's see, where could we start here? So let me play something perhaps just to demonstrate the technique. Basically what I'm doing here, just in a nutshell, I'll break it down a little bit more in a moment, but any fretted note, for the most part, any fretted note that is available as an open string, I'm replacing with that open string, if that makes sense. Okay, so if I'm playing, for example, I'm playing something and I'm playing this G note here, instead of playing that G note, I'm going to play the open G string. Or if I'm playing this A note here, I'll play the A open string. So not every note is going to be available as an open string, and that's good. Otherwise, we'd be pretty limited. But that's essentially what I'm doing. So rather than break it down first, let me just play something so you can get a bit of an idea of the sound, and then I'll break it down. So some keys are better than others with this technique. Naturally, keys with more open string notes in them. So keys like G, E, A, C tend to be the more suitable keys for this sort of playing for the most part. So if I play sort of, I'll just play a little bit of a blues in G here using this technique. Okay, so that's just playing through a blues using this particular concept, if you like. Again, replacing, not necessarily always, but I would say most of the time, replacing fretted notes that exist as open strings with open strings. So to demonstrate or to explain that a little bit more, if I play a G major scale here, 2 octaves of a G major scale, what I'm going to do is every time I play a note in the scale that is available as an open string, I'll play the open string instead. So here on the first part of the scale, I've got G, A, B. Well, that A note at the 5th fret could be played as the open 5th string, so that's what I'll do. And then when I get to the next string, I've got C, D, E. D is available as an open string, so I'll play the open string. Now, when I play the E, you'd think, yeah, E is available as an open string, but the problem there is you do have E open strings, but not in the same octave as this one. So we can't replace that. We don't want to jump an octave up or down, so we just play that as a fretted note. The F sharp, we play as a fretted note, but when we get to the G here, I'm going to replace that with the open G. So you'll find when you do this in the keys that suit, like the G and the C and what I was saying before, it more or less works out quite nice where you kind of alternate between fretted note and open string. So when I play that scale, you can hear instead of, okay? and I can continue up the scale in the same way. Up and down, I can get that second octave there as well, just doing the same thing. Any note that exists as an open string, I'm replacing with the open string. And so, you know, there's different ways that you could play that scale. This way here is just putting it up, for, except for the first couple of notes, up around the 7th position. And it's not so much a rule exactly, well, it's not, but if I get 2 notes on the same string consecutively, I'll typically use hammer-ons and pull-offs just to get a bit of a smoother sound. So that doesn't occur here, because what happens with how it works out in this position is not only you're alternating open string, fretted note, open string, fretted note, you're also you're never staying on the same string for 2 notes in a row. You keep going back and forth between strings. It's the way that it works out. Whereas here, that's not so much the case. So when I get 2 notes on one string, I hammer on and do the pull-offs on the way back down. Play the right scale here. That's better. Okay, so it might sort of seem random, but when you play around with these ideas, like anything, there's patterns. Okay, there's a real formula that when I started playing around with this myself, I didn't really see it. I mean, I didn't invent this sort of playing. I've just used it a lot. You start to, it's the same with harmonics. You see the patterns, and it's very, very logical. So it becomes quite familiar when you play around with it for a little while. So that's the basic idea there, and you can do that with anything. For example, I might do that with, I might have a riff that might go, okay, that's a little E7 riff, okay. Now I can take that riff and so I'm playing the same riff there, but I'm replacing all the open string, or the notes that can be played as open strings again with open strings. So you can take anything, plot it out, look at the notes that are open strings, replace them with the open strings, and there you go, you've got your riff. And it will work out really nice. It'll sort of fall into the fingers pretty nicely. I mean, you know, if you've got some experience finger picking, but with some practice, it works out really well. Okay, so you can take any sort of riff and reinvent it, rephrase it with the open string, and get that drone, that nice contrast between fretted note and the resonating open strings.
Great stuff, Simon. Sounds really cool. There was a comment. I've lost it now. But basically, someone had said that it sounds like, oh, here, Drew said it. He said, it's like harp techniques, like the harp harmonic technique, except open strings appearing instead of harmonics. And I also thought of it a little bit that way. You get the overlapping notes together, and it's really cool. All right, you got another one for us? Another one in the goodie bag?
Yes. What I'd say, just on the open string thing, one quick thing before perhaps we move from that technique. If you want to get started with that, you can certainly do what I suggested there. If you want something that gets you going a little bit quicker, and this is not really a shortcut or a half-assed approach, it's a thing in itself, but it's like a banjo roll. And actually, when I'm doing a lot of that stuff, it's not consistently banjo rolls, but there's a lot of banjo rolls in it. And a banjo roll, or a forward banjo roll, let's say, is where you use your thumb, index, middle, or you can use your thumb, index, ring, and basically you play 3 strings, one after the other, separate strings, thumb, index, middle, thumb, index, middle, thumb, index, middle. This type of thing. Or you might alternate between 4-3-2, 4-3-1. So this is like the banjo roll sort of thing. that type of thing, right? So we know that sound that's coming from the banjo, but that actual finger picking pattern, thumb, index, middle, thumb, index, middle, thumb, index, middle, basically on consecutive or adjacent strings, can be applied to chords and pentatonic scales, a way of playing a pentatonic scale, getting this open string approach. So if we take the pentatonic scale, so if I'm playing, let's say we've got A minor, pattern 1, right, at the 5th fret. So if we apply this approach and get the, and for an open string sound with the pentatonic scale, I'm going to play this is the pattern. We play the second of the 2 notes on the bottom string, pattern 1 here. We play the first of the 2 notes on the 5th string. So they're both fretted notes. One's played with the thumb, the other is played with the index finger. And then the next string, the 4th string, is played open. So you get this. Right? So I'm playing the 6th string, the 5th, and the 4th. The 6th string has the second note of the pentatonic scale. We don't play the first. Then you've got the first note of the 2 on the 5th string. We don't play the next. And you play the open string. That's the pattern. And then you follow up the string set. So here I'm playing 5, 4, 3, 5, 4, 3, 5, 4, 3. Same thing. Second note of the 2 on the 5th string, first of the 2 on the 4th, and then the open third. And then 4, 3, 2, and 3, 2, 1. So we get, okay. And you can get cool little runs up and down your pentatonic scales. That's pattern 2 or pattern 3. And as you move up higher, what happens is the open strings are constant, right? They're staying the same, they're in the same octave, all that, same range, but your notes are getting higher. And so you can get some cool sounds by getting larger intervals between your fretted notes and your open strings. So it's a really cool concept that you can apply to your pentatonic scale. And you get a nice sort of, a cool sound with the thumb, index, and middle finger. And that's not that difficult to do because it's a consistent pattern. And it's a roll. It's very efficient when you get it going. Thumb, index, middle, or sometimes I use thumb, index, ring. I like the sound of the ring finger a lot of the time. And that same approach, if we just isolated the picking hand here, forget the pentatonic scale, we just isolated the picking hand, we're going 6, 4, 3, 5, 4, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1, right, up the string. And we can come back down. If I take a chord, okay, it sounds good. Okay, rolling up chords, and there's lots of things you can do with that on little triad shapes with open strings. So it's this consistent pattern in the picking hand applied to chords and pentatonic scales and anything else you can think of. It's getting in there and experimenting with it, because that's the way you discover a whole lot of things that you wouldn't perhaps come across otherwise. So that's another kind of approach with the open string droning sound, which is another sound that I really like. Another technique that's got a really cool sound to it is a tremolo picking technique. This kind of comes from classical and flamenco styles, both of which I'm not really, I'm not a classical player or flamenco player, but I like the tremolo picking. And what that is if let's take an E chord here. So basically your thumb is going to arpeggiate the chord in any sort of way that you want, really, but the thumb is arpeggiating the chord while the ring, middle, and index fingers are plucking the one string. So what I'm doing here is I've got my ring finger plucking the first string, followed by my middle, followed by my first. So for a tremolo effect. and the thumb is going to be playing notes in the bass, right? Arpeggiating the chord. And when you play one cycle, you can think of that as 16ths, 1 E and 2 E and 3. It's a really beautiful sound, that tremolo sound. You could do it on. And quite often when you play this technique, you kind of got a bit of a rubato feel about it. Slowing and speeding up, essentially. Okay, this type of sound. So it's getting this 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and with the thumb and 3 fingers. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E. Aim for a nice, smooth sound. You can do this on anything. It doesn't have to be Spanish flamenco type flavored things. You could take a standard sort of chord progression and do this. So I might take something like just a standard chord progression in C, and you can do all sorts of things with the note on top. It doesn't have to stay the one tone necessarily the whole time. If you're working on this technique, there is a video on my YouTube channel where I talk about this particular technique in more detail. But when you are practicing it, to get a consistent sound between the thumb and the fingers, I mean, initially I would just get it going. It's probably going to feel a little odd at first. So that would be first protocol would be just get it going. But then take turns accenting different fingers. So I might play it where I accent my ring finger. Or my middle. Or my ring finger. Or the thumb. The idea is that each finger is getting isolated essentially and building the strength in the finger, and they all then come together and get more of an even sound. I found that really helped with my tremolo picking to isolate fingers. And I mean, if you find one's particularly weak in terms of sounding, then give that more focus. But otherwise, just work through and alternate. Give one finger a bit of a give one a bit of a focus for quite a few times first before moving to the next. But that is the tremolo picking technique, and you experiment with it. So I was just playing around with this earlier, and you know how you get the well, yeah, the old blues thing, right? So I was thinking, yeah, you could add tremolo to that. Okay, for a cool effect. So there's all sorts of ways that you can take things from different styles and just think, what if I put that with this, and you just see what happens, and it works or it doesn't work, and you move on. But it's good to take ideas and just learn them, but then look at ways you can put them into your playing. You don't have to be a flamenco player to take some ideas to put into whatever it is that you do, or vice versa, or whatever it might be. So tremolo picking is is also really, really nice sound. It sounds great on a nylon string too. But it's yeah, that sort of sound a lot of the time where you play in a more rubato style, which actually makes it a little bit easier. With that blues one there, that wasn't so rubato, and I was getting a bit caught up with that one, because you can sort of control it a little bit more. But that's the tremolo picking technique. So that's another cool finger picking technique I like to use.
Awesome. And we put a link to Simon's YouTube channel where he's got a bunch of videos you guys can check out. So, Simon, you got any more?
Yes. Okay, let's have a look here. Someone mentioned, I think somewhere in the comments, about percussive guitar playing. Now, I'm not a big percussive guitar player. It's not that I don't like it. There's some amazing stuff out there with the percussive style of playing. But I've dabbled with it, and if you haven't done it at all before, you can do simple things. You don't have to go all out with the percussive stuff. So, the acoustic guitar obviously is a very, can be a very rhythmic instrument. And there's some simple things you can do to kind of emulate a drum kit, right? Lots of things that you can do. But some basic ones in terms of building a basic beat, you've got the kick drum, if you like, of the kit with the heel of the hand here. So I'm just curling my fingers up, heel of my hand, and coming down just on the soundboard of the guitar here. That's the kick drum. For a snare sound, you wrap I use my ring and pinky here. You could use your middle and ring fingers if you like, but the idea is to use two fingers and to hit just right on the side of the guitar, but you're wanting to hit so that the base of the finger sort of lands flush with the edge of the guitar there, not sort of hitting at the top of the fingers, but really getting it. So you get that. You're after a rim shot sort of snare sound, so you want a bit of a popping sort of sound, not just sort of hitting it with the tips of the fingers or tops of the fingers there. So you want that sort of popping sound. It can take a little bit of getting used to, but that's for a rim shot. So you got like your kick, and you've got your snare. So you get that popping sort of sound. Now you can use your thumb to get a bit of a tom sort of sound, toms, if you like. So I'm hitting kick drum, thumb, snare, thumb, I think. Yeah. You can use your fretting hand to kind of get the hi-hat. So the hi-hat might be playing a eighth note rhythm, and then you've got kick and snare. Right, just to get a basic rock beat. So these are just some simple things. There's a whole lot more that you can do. But there's some basic things just to get you started. Now, that's all well and good to do, but you can then incorporate that with playing. And again, there's endless things that you could do. However, something pretty simple would be to play like, let's say we played like an E minor to an A suspended. So we keep it really simple in the fretting hand, right? Couldn't get much more simple than that. We've got the E minor, open chord, A suspended, and we might sort of so I'm playing E minor. There's a bit of a percussive sound there. Just hitting the strings with the back of my fingernails to get that percussive sound on the 2, and then it's kick or heel of the hand, thumb, and snare. And then the same thing with the A minor. Or you could okay, so that's what am I doing there? So I'm hitting the C, then it's the kick, thumb, and fingers on the thing for the snare, and the thumb on the way back. And then up, down on the chord. So it's down on the chord, heel, snare, thumb, and then up, down. And then on a G. Exactly the same thing there. And then on the G. That type of thing. Now, there is on my website, there is a percussive video I did quite some years ago, and it does go a little bit further into it. I was doing a little bit more percussive stuff back then, including those exact examples, I believe. So if you want to check that out, you can. You'll find it on the website. I think it's actually opt-in box on the homepage. You can log in for opt in for that specific one. So if you like that sort of stuff, and there's other things in there just to get started with some percussive stuff, thumb slapping stuff and things like that, you can check that out there. But just some basic percussive stuff is pretty cool. Of course, if you want to go into that style more, then you can do that. But some of the basic things aren't that difficult to do. It takes a little bit of getting used to getting that snare sound. It did for me, I remember at the time, to get a consistent sort of popping sound like that, as opposed to just sort of hitting it and getting a bit of a duller sound. So that's some percussive stuff there that can work in well with acoustic guitar playing.
Pretty cool stuff. Very different from the other things that you've shown so far. Maybe we have time for one more, and then let's get into some of these questions. So, and by the way, if you guys have additional questions, ask them now. We'll try to get to as many as we can. Of course, Simon will be, I assume, doing most of the answering on these sort of questions. So, Simon, you got one more thing for us?
Sure. Let's have a look here. So, another thing that I like to do is Travis picking. So, Travis picking is it comes from a guitar player many years ago, Mel Travis, and he sort of engineered this way of playing guitar where you have basically a steady bass with then harmony and melody parts being played on the highest strings. So if I can demonstrate perhaps on a C chord first. So basically, well, Travis picking, there's the Travis picking pattern. So a lot of people kind of get a little confused with this, and maybe I'm splitting hairs a little bit, but it's Travis picking is not a pattern. I mean, it's largely based on a pattern, but there's a whole lot more to Travis picking than just simply a pattern. But you find the pattern Travis picking has come out of the style, and you hear that in many songs. So the pattern itself, even if you did not go into Travis picking the style so much, is prevalent in so many songs. It's an absolute must pattern to learn as a finger picking guitar player. But with Travis picking, you're going to use a thumb pick for starters. So there's different types of thumb picks, but basically they all do the same thing. It goes around the thumb, right down below the base of the nail, the thumbnail there, and then you get the pick there. And the reason for the thumb pick is to get that sharper bass sound, which in Travis picking you'll mute pretty much most of the time. 99% of the time you're going to mute the bass like this. And you get, so it's a much sharper sound. If I just use my thumb, I mean, I get the same notes, the same pattern, but it's not quite the sound we're after for Travis picking. If you're using the pattern in a song, that's fine. You don't have to use a thumb pick. But with the Travis picking, the thumb pick's pretty important to get that sharp up. And sometimes it's described as like a boom chick, boom chick, boom chick, boom chick, boom chick, boom chick sound. Okay, for want of something more technical. And the other thing with the bass is it's always on the beat with Travis picking. It's always going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Always. I'm trying to think if it's not on the beat, it's not Travis picking. And this is good because it becomes really reliant. A real reference point for what your other fingers are doing. It's the constant, it's the consistent thing. It's your bass player staying on the beat, keeping the groove there. Now, so it really is the most important part of Travis picking. While there's other things going on the higher strings, while that stays consistent, this is the most important part. This is the backbeat. It's got to, everything else is playing against the thumb. The thumb's keeping the groove, and we all know how important that is. So there's only a set number of bass patterns too. So I'm on a root 5 chord here, C, root note on the 5th string. So I can either play 5, 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5, 4. It's called a 5, 4, 5, 4 pattern. Or as I was playing just before, 5, 4, 6, 4, 5, 4, 6, 4. Which one you use will depend on the situation, depends on what sound you want. And it will depend on the chord a little bit too. But they're the two possibilities with root 5 chords: 5, 4, 5, 4, or 5, 4, 6, 4. With root 6 chords, let's say we have an F chord, you could play 6, 4, 6, 4. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 in terms of the beat. The numbers I'm saying 6, 4, 6, 4 is the strings. I'm referring to the strings. 6th string, the 4th string, the 6th, the 4th. Or you could go 6, 4, 5, 4, 6, 4, 5, 4, 6, 4, 5, 4. That's it. They're the pattern. So that it keeps it nice and simple. And the idea here is to be able to develop independence between your thumb and your fingers, because your fingers are going to be, doing something totally different to what the thumb's doing, and that can take a little bit of practice. But the first thing, if we just we're playing on a C chord, would be just to get that bass going. And notice my fingers are just resting on the strings here. We don't want to sort of, be doing it like we're playing with a flat pick, because these fingers will be doing things. So it's better to keep them grounded, just relaxed, not gripping or anything, well, not holding on for life there, very relaxed, but sitting on the strings, just building the strength in the thumb. The thumb's straight too. We want to lock that thumb in place. We weaken the thumb if we bend it at that joint there, at that knuckle. We keep that nice and straight. And we're muting, because the idea is I'm just adding harmony there, right? The higher parts of the chord. But the whole time my bass is consistent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And you hear definition between that harmony and the bass, because the bass is muted, the harmony is not. So that's essentially that's the pattern with some harmony there. Then you want to add some melody. Basically, it doesn't really matter what instrumentation you've got in any sort of setup. The 3 basic layers of music really is bass, harmony, melody. Okay, so we've got bass, we've got harmony, and now I'm adding some melody in. That's my melody and my bass and my harmony. And we can, when you start adding melody, it's best to, you want to break all this down, but it's best to not syncopate, keep everything straight. So if I was keeping that straight, everything's kind of on the beat, because that's easier to do first and get a reference for where the melody is, and then you can play around with it a bit by coming in with some of the melody notes in between the beat, on and off the beats, like that. It's straight, and this is the tune. So the whole time I've got the bass going there, and then melody. So that's the idea with Travis picking. You can pretty much arrange anything you want, if you want, using Travis picking. You hear the pattern in tunes, you know, all the time, as I said. Landslide, Fleetwood Mac. It's a keyboard, I think, but that's using the Travis picking pattern, and I would not use a thumb pick for that because it wouldn't be the sound that you'd want. But for true sort of Travis picking style, using the thumb pick, and then melody and things are coming into play as well. But all sorts of things you can do there. It takes a little bit of practice to get the independence of thumb and fingers, but that's something that you need for finger picking in general anyway, not just Travis picking. So that's, yeah, that's a cool approach that, again, you can do many things with, particularly once you get used to the technique itself.
Very cool. All right, so we got a couple of questions here. Here's one relating back to the tremolo picking. What advice can you give on building speed on the tremolo? Asked by Drew. Thanks for that question, Drew. What do you think?
Well, it takes a very slowly, and focus on the rhythm. So it's like you do once you've got it going and you're applying it, you can stretch the time. You don't have to be straight, you know, like playing to a metronome. In fact, it sounds better if you don't. But very slowly, and as I was touching on before, accenting each finger, so you get a good feel for where each finger is and its job, and building the strength of the attack of the finger, articulating the notes is one thing. Okay, that's going to help, because you're going to have to slow it down to do that, and then your fingers are going to get stronger and they're going to sort of get more of a feel for where the string is. And so you get because you do want to build the speed, but you want to get a nice rounded sound. So whilst you do stretch the time, when you're practicing it, training it, keep it very, and building the speed, keep it very straight. So do it with a metronome. But think of 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3 and a 4 and a 1E and a 2E and a... Now, the other thing that I've focused on a lot when I was working on building the speed with tremolo picking is also the efficiency of my fingers. So I would even spend time basically making sure that when I finished plucking with my last finger, index, that my ring finger was back on the string. Now, it cuts the sound out. It's not how you actually would do it, but it's just building efficiency with the fingers, making sure that they're not going to fly away, and certainly not moving your wrist at all, and, you know, plucking at the strings. It's just your wrist is very still, and you're wanting the fingers to be very efficient. I'm just trying to think what... yeah, so basically when the next finger is about to go, what am I trying to say here? I'm trying to remember how I used to practice this for efficiency with the fingers. I think once I'd played through one cycle, when I pluck that last string, my thumb is back on the lower string. Not picking and then thumb, pick the last note and put the thumb back. These little things here really help build the efficiency of your fingers. So basically go really, really slowly, because it's about efficiency. The speed's a byproduct of doing other things correctly. If you just try and play fast, you're going to tense up and it's not going to sound good, and the rhythm's going to be all out. So you're going to go very, very slowly, really slowly, so you can focus on efficiency, not speed, and the speed will come. Okay, so focusing on efficiency and then also taking some time to focus on the articulation of the fingers, plucking the strings, taking turns with the fingers.
Very good. And one thing that Simon mentioned that maybe some people could have missed because you went through it kind of quickly is saying that you want to stay relaxed. So after each finger plays, you don't want the finger to stay in a tense position, right? So it plays and then the finger relaxes. It plays and it relaxes. It's not, he's not doing this and then having to reset his hand to do that, right? So it's relax after you play.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's take, I think the first part of this question is kind of obvious as yes, but the second part, maybe you want to address that. What string gauge and action are preferable for fingerstyle? What are your thoughts on that, Simon?
Well, on this guitar here, I've got 12, so they're reasonably thickish gauge, which I like. For me, I used to have 11s on this some years ago. Then I changed to 12s because I just preferred the sound. It's got more bassy sort of sound, a louder volume, unplugged with the thicker strings. A little bit more work, but if you get it set up for the string gauge, then it should be okay. So yeah, I don't really necessarily outside of that have a strong opinion on what gauge string is better. I'd say probably something along sort of 11, nothing below 11s. I would think, just to sort of be able to grip the string pretty well and have that, enough tension in the string when you're picking. But it really depends on what you're doing. So I can't probably say for sure they're like black and white, but somewhere around 12s are pretty good. I haven't gone any heavier than 12s. I use Elixir strings. I really like the Elixir strings and the 80-20 as opposed to the phosphor bronze. I find better, but I think that's just personal taste, really, what you prefer. But the Elixir strings I've used for years. I always like the Elixir strings. They've got a nice feel to them as well. But yeah, somewhere around the middle of the road with the string gauge. So 12s are what I use, and fingernails are going to contribute a lot to the tone that you get, whatever gauge string or brand of string that you use. So you want fingernails coming past the fingertip, because when you're plucking the strings, it's kind of almost 50-50, 60-40 maybe, flesh of finger to fingernail when you're plucking the string. So it's not just the flesh of my finger, it's not just my nail, it's both, and that makes a huge difference to the tone that you get.
All right, very good. So Simon, thank you for all of that. You have something, I think, that everyone can check out and download.
Yes,
for free. Do you want to just talk about that real quick?
Sure. So this is an ebook that I have. I'll get it out of the way. This is an ebook video, actually. So this is the harp harmonic technique that I was doing at the beginning. So this ebook will take you through the very basics of harp harmonics. So more of what I was talking about in terms of isolating the harmonic and on open strings and getting the correct position of your picking hand for the harmonic, and then it goes into some as it says there, 5 chord progressions basically, or 5 approaches, 5 chord progressions, but they're all different in not just different progressions, but the different approach patterns and so forth with the harp harmonics. Some are single notes, some are notes together, some little melodic components in there as well. And it's video. So with this particular ebook, I made the choice of making it video because it's such a visual thing. You really need to see harp harmonics because it's a little different. So rather than just audio, there'll be links in the ebook, and you can click on them, and that'll take you to a page on my website, and you'll see me playing the exercise. So it'll make it very, very clear for you to do. And that is, yes, available on the web address that you see below there. Just opting in, it's free, and you can download that and check out some harp harmonics and see if you can get some of those into your playing.
All right, very good. And I also have something, oh, get out of the way also. This is for your fretting hand. There we go, this one. Your fretting hand for finger independence of your fretting hand. One of the things, whether you're playing acoustic or electric or anything else, that people get caught up on is that their fingers often don't move independently of each other. And that's particularly true of these two fingers. And when the fingers don't move more independently, it's harder to play. Playing becomes typically slower, and you certainly fatigue faster if you're playing things that are difficult or hard or fast. So this ebook is also totally free. Go to tomhess.net/fretting. You can download your copy right now. There's no strings attached. It's just a free ebook. Check it out as you like. All right. So, Simon, thank you very much for hanging out here today and sharing all this great stuff. You're certainly an expert in things way beyond, this is not my area of expertise at all. So that's why I wanted to bring in the very best that I know, and that is you. So thank you for that. And thanks for everyone who asked questions and hung out with us today. I hope you got a lot out of this. So check out Simon's website, YouTube channel. Have a great rest of your week. Take care, everybody. We'll see you guys
Thank
next.
you. Thanks, guys.